Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an all-new reaction and review. Tonight, guys, I'm taking a look at a horror movie from 2013. That movie is Curse of Chucky. Now, I have seen all 5 previous films with Chucky, and I can tell you that the last good one, at least to me, was Child's Play 2, released all the way back in 1990. And since then, we had Child's Play 3, which really sucked. We had Bride of Chucky, which sucked even more. And we had Seed of Chucky, which by all rights should never have been fucking made. So, guys, I have very low hopes on this. I have no faith in this thing even being half good. But hey, who knows? This thing could genuinely shock me and could be as good as those first 2 Child's Play movies. And the only way I'm going to find out if this thing has any hope at all is if I shut up and I push play, and I'm going to do that right now. So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out Curse of Chucky. Well, guys, this movie's off to a bit of a slow start. Mind you, though, the good fucking Child's Play and Chucky film, well, the only good ones were Child's Play movies, also started off really slow, so I honestly am not complaining. At least it's kind of sort of refreshing to actually see a movie in this series want to start off slow instead of come firing out with god-awful jokes and shitty fucking kills. At least this could prove to be interesting. You know, guys, the characters in this movie are getting incredibly irritating. I would love it if this movie would end with Chucky just killing every person in this fucking house. Then again, I'd be really happy if anything of interest would happen in this movie, but so far we really haven't been getting that. So I'm really going to assume that a mass fucking murder spree is just a little out of the realm of possibility. Alright, guys, good news is Chucky is still able to creatively kill his victims in really awesome ways. Bad news, that puppet looks like absolute shit. You would think that in the 9 years' time between fucking Seed of Chucky and this, the puppet work would have gotten better. This shit looks awful. It really does. And I'm going to have to look at this for the next, 40 minutes. This is gonna suck. Okay, so we just had a CG Chucky walking down a flight of stairs. The CG is somehow worse than the god-awful puppet work in this fucking movie. And now we just had a child or a midget dressed up as Chucky who was about 3 times taller than the actual doll. God, can this movie get anything straight and get anything consistent? I'm not asking for much at this point, guys, because frankly, this thing is not going to get good. I just want a little bit of consistency, please. There it is again, guys. We just had another child, and I can clearly tell that it was a child this time, standing about 4 feet tall, playing a 2 foot tall doll, and it looked like shit. Why the fuck do they continue to go back to that? You couldn't even find, a midget, a dwarf, something who was closer to the height instead of a 4-foot kid? It looks really cheap, and it's making this movie look terrible. Well, guys, that was Curse of Chucky. Let's shut that off. Okay, well, before I talk about the regular things I normally talk about, like writing and acting, I really need to touch on a major factor when it comes to this movie, and that is the special effects, specifically the puppet work. I need to beat this horse senseless. Guys, as I stated, the last good film, at least to me, that had Chucky in it was Child's Play 2. That was made all the way back in 1990, okay? There were 23 years between Child's Play 2 and this thing. There was 9 years between Seed of Chucky and this thing. So why in heavenly fuck does the puppet work in this thing look infinitely worse than anything we've seen in any previous Child's Play or Chucky film? There is no excuse for that, and I don't want to hear that this movie was made on a low budget. That is not a fucking excuse. On a low budget, you could still replicate the way that the way that the character looked in the first Child's Play movie, made in the 80s, okay? There is no excuse for it to look this bad unless nobody gave a shit. And considering that the writing is incredibly lazy and our characters are shallow as shit, I'm going to cover all that in just a moment, I'm not at all shocked that they also did not care to make the puppet look in any way good. Now, it honestly, guys, is not just that the puppet looks cheap and shitty. One big factor when it came to the early films, especially the first three, was that Chucky had to seamlessly shift from his innocent looking good guy persona into the sentient psychotic killer Charles Lee Ray. And it did flow seamlessly in every single film. It worked perfectly. But here the difference between the good guy head and the Chucky head is so startlingly different that it just doesn't look right at all. Now, when I say that, guys, what I mean is that you probably upon watching the earlier films, you would probably have a harder time differentiating between the two different heads. But here it is like night and day, and it has partially to do with the fact that the mouth on the good guy head is way too shallow, and the teeth are way too big. And then when they cut to the far more movable Chucky head, the mouth is far deeper, and the teeth are smaller, and the freckles on them are not quite as noticeable. It really is just this stark difference that just looks so weird, and it's going to pull you right out of the movie. Now, while I'm talking about puppet work, I might as well continue with everything else involving Chucky. At one point, a character notices a little bit of flaking plastic on the Chucky head, and they peel it off, and right there are all of the stitches that Chucky had picked up from Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky. However, you can clearly see where all of this where all this extra plastic was just laid over the scar or laid over the stitches. And that would probably have worked a lot better if it wasn't as blindingly noticeable there, yet not noticeable in the slightest in any of the prior scenes. Once more, it's just two shots that do not, it's just two things that just do not hook up, and it looks awful. Now, on top of that, we also have a rare sight to see, which is Chucky rendered in CG, which is one of the two ways that they get the character to walk downstairs. The problem is that the CG Chucky looks like shit. It looks incredibly amateurish and cheap. And while I'm talking about CG, this movie also has another problem that I'm getting really sick of seeing, and that is CG blood. It once more shows that you can't do CG blood and make it work when you're working with a live action movie. There is nothing wrong with using using practical blood. However, since now I'm talking about blood, it would also help if the blood actually would stay one color instead of hitting a vast spectrum of reds and pinks that that change based on what victim dies. Where certain people have this dark red blood, and the priest bleeds pink when the cops find him. It looks really awful. Now that's way off of the subject I'm on, which is the ways that they worked with Chucky. And now, we not only have a CG Chucky that looks awful, but then in the wider shots, we then have a series of children or dwarves or midgets all playing Chucky, and there's like 2 or 3 shots that work because they basically are a blink and you miss it kind of a thing. But anytime that one of these actors dressed as Chucky has to linger in the background, you can clearly tell that the actor in the costume is at least twice as tall as the doll he's playing. And this is especially noticeable when they have a long tracking shot of Chucky walking down a flight of stairs. And mind you now, this thing here is a top-down shot. The camera's here, it's pointing straight down on the stairs, and you see Chucky as he's walking down the stairs. And somehow, guys, and I didn't think that you could do this with a top-down shot. You can tell that the actor is far too tall to be playing Chucky, and it looks cheap. It looks terrible. And considering the fact that we didn't have those sorts of problems in the previous 5 movies, it seems incredibly noticeable here. Because, guys, this thing here was made in 2013. At this point, you should know how to do these movies and do them right, especially since this thing wasn't done by people who had never worked on the series. It was written and directed by the guy who created the franchise and had worked on every film since. So, I don't know what the fuck happened here. It just looked incredibly cheap. Now, since I just mentioned the fact that it was written by the creator of the series, now let's talk about the writing. Now, one thing I can say when it came to all 5 of the previous films, when it came to the first 3 Child's Play movies, as well as Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky, is they didn't feel the urge to rehash a lot of things, where they were able to keep the films fresh. All right, and even though I didn't care for Child's Play 3, and I thought that Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky really sucked, at least they didn't attempt to repeat things seen in the earlier films. This thing, though, decides to take essentially the main plot of the first film and rehash it here, and it doesn't work as well. You see, guys, the point of the first film was that you were supposed to be unfucking sure if anything that Andy is telling you is true. Until about 3/4 of the way into the film, when you find out that yes, Chucky actually is sentient. All right, and until then, you basically were supposed to wonder if everything that Andy's telling you about Chucky saying things and doing this and doing that were real, or if he was just nuts. And that is what made that movie work. And from that point, every other film essentially was able to immediately establish that Chucky is sentient and that Chucky is 100% alive. And this movie opted to go back to the first movie's formula. So you are well over halfway through the film before anyone actually catches on that Chucky is alive. Now, mind you, he actually had already killed two people by that point. So basically then the viewer is able to know that Chucky is still, alive. Of course, with this being the sixth film in the series, you should have known that going in. It's just they then tried to make it seem as if it was this big shocker that Chucky is still fucking living. It's like, no, we've seen him kill 2 people. It really doesn't bring any tension. Speaking of tension, the writer here doesn't know how to write tension. All right, because we had like a 10-minute gap in there where it was nothing but fake outs and jump scares, which were all basically the music. It was basically, guys, that the music fucking swells and then somebody moves something and then there's nothing there. And then the music swells and the person moves something and then it's a creepy head. It's a creepy plastic head on a doll somewhere, whatever, and then the music swells, then they move something, and then it's nothing. This happened for like 5, 6, 7, maybe even up to 10 minutes. It felt like it took forever. Just fake out after pointless jump scares. When, guys, again, 6th film in the series, we should have been able to have just hit the fucking ground, running, with Chucky trying to find another host body, since, well, that has always been his goal. And he never actually even cites that as a goal until the last, like, closing minute of the film. That right there is when he finally states that he wants to play a game of hide the soul. The very fact that it took them that fucking long to get there is just terrible, guys. The pacing on this was awful. The tension did not fucking exist. Our characters were all lifeless, and frankly, I was more than happy when Chucky killed off damn near every single one of them, and when one of them was carted off to a fucking nut house, I was happy. The only thing which sucks is, well, the ending, also the ending kind of sucked also, but then again that is because the very last thing we see before the fucking credits is another pointless, unnecessary, and ineffective jump scare. So frankly, this movie had nothing in terms of writing. The acting, I am going to say this, guys, as much as I hated the writing, and as flat and lifeless as all of the characters are, and as boring as Chucky is in this entire film, Brad fucking Dourif is still able to play Chucky with absolute perfection. He is the only actor here, though, who actually puts in any kind of effort. So I honestly am not, I seriously am not shocked, because really Brad fucking Dourif hasn't done much outside of play Chucky as far as I know. And he still has it. I just wish that they gave him a better script to work with. Then again, I kind of wish also that the previous three entries in the series were also better, but hey, you just have to sort of take it, as it fucking comes. Everybody else here turned in nothing. They turned in lifeless showings, which makes sense because they were given a terrible script to work with. So I'm not asking them to perform miracles, but at the very least they could have fucking tried. The very fact that nobody else here is trying, and Dourif is just lighting it up as Chucky, it really does sort of stand out. So, I have touched on writing, I've touched on acting, I touched extensively on puppet work, special effects, I've essentially touched on special effects. I will say this, guys. Gore effects, when they are not done in CG, and when the blood is a reasonable color and thickness, it looks great, okay? Again, though, that's maybe one or two shots where the blood actually looks like blood and not like Kool-Aid or pink fucking slime. So let's just sort of take that for what it is. Special effects here are a huge mixed fucking bag. Also, when it comes to puppeteering, I also failed to touch on this. In the previous films, guys, puppeteering on Chucky was fantastic, and his mouth almost moved perfectly with every single word. Mind you, I say almost perfectly. Here though, guys, there are shots where Chucky is talking, and the mouth is basically just mindlessly flapping, and it's not trying in any way to match what is being said, and it looks terrible. It is once more another thing here that makes this whole movie look fucking ridiculously cheap. So guys, when all is said and done, and also sound mix here is at least competent, and the music essentially is made up of the music fucking swelling for more pointless fucking fake outs and jump scares that don't fucking work. And beyond that, guys, the score here is completely forgettable. So guys, when all is said and done, am I able to recommend Curse of Chucky? Fuck no. This thing is quite possibly the worst entry in the entire series, because at least, guys, even though I didn't like Bride of, Seed of, or Child's Play 3, at least they all had a fucking soul. At least, guys, I was able to look past a whole lot of the faults and flaws in those, and at least find a reason to sit down and watch them. This thing doesn't even have that. This thing is a poorly made, lazy, tired rehash of elements from the previous films, and This is by far the worst entry in this series, and I never want to see Chucky in another movie. This thing has shown me that the character is dead. Now, Curse of Chucky came off of the Amazon wish list. The person who sent it in did not send me a YouTube channel or a website to plug, but they did at least put their name on the shipping slip that came with this when it was sent through Amazon. And with that, Louise, thank you. I genuinely wanted this thing to be good, and it really just wasn't. I could not find anything good here outside of, well, the acting of the one person I knew who could turn in a fairly decent showing here. And dude, I honestly would not have known if you hadn't have sent it in. Luis, thank you. Wow, that was bad. Oh, and guys, on a closing note, I have noticed something. And it's thanks to this movie that I now have enough evidence to fully lock in this. I've noticed that oftentimes the worst entry in most film series start with the words "curse of." Allow me to explain. When I covered all of the Puppet Master movies, worst movie in that series was Curse of the Puppet Master. If you ask fans of the Halloween series, which film is the worst? At least in terms of movies involving Michael Myers, most of them will say Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. If you ask fans of the Pink Panther films, the worst one to many of them is Curse of the Pink Panther. You ask fans of Woody Allen's movies, a lot of them will tell you his worst is Curse of the Jade Scorpion. And I just told you, at least to me, that the worst movie in the Child's Play / Chucky series is Curse of Chucky. So yeah, guys, there really is a curse in movies, and it's when you're stupid enough to name your movie Curse of anything. Oh my god. I am really happy, guys, that I have fucking noticed that, and I'm really hoping to find something which is going to break that trend, but somehow I don't think that is going to happen. Anyway, guys, with that, we come to the close of another reaction and review. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and I will see you all in the near future. Peace.